Welcome to another episode of Soul Sentred, the podcast. I'm Janie Morris. Thanks so much for joining us again. I've got a quick question for you. What if peak performance wasn't reserved for Olympians or world champions, however, was something that you and I could actually define and use in our own life? Well, that's one of the questions that we're going to be asking our very special guest today, who has taken some time out of his day. He's right across the other side of the world. He's over in the US, and he is joining us today to talk to us not only about what I just suggested, but also all of the work that he's currently doing and has been doing that is going to help you and I understand and navigate and plan our future for a long, healthy, fit and long life. Dr. Andy Galpin is one of the world's leading voices in human performance science. He's a tenured professor, researcher, and he's the executive director of the new Human Performance Centre at Parker University. Now, Andy holds a PhD in human bioenergetics, and he's worked with Olympic champions, he's worked with elite athletes, he's worked with people just like you and I, he's worked with CEOs all around the world, and he's the co-founder of Biomolecular Athlete, Ariet, and Vitality Blueprint. And Vitality Blueprint is what we're really going to focus on today. So welcome, Dr. Andy Galpin, to Soul Sentred, the podcast.
Oh, what an intro. That was fantastic. You get me all warm and fuzzy inside. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And I know that it's late in the afternoon where you are at the moment, so we're very grateful. We do have a global audience, Andy. So whilst we are beaming you in here to Australia right now, everyone around the world does listen to Soul Sentred, the podcast. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind just giving everyone a little bit more of a background on you, what you've been doing and leading up to where you are now.
Sure. Well, as you stated in the introductory, I am a scientist by trade. I am a professor. So I've taught in the areas of health and human performance and nutrition and all things like that for almost 15 years now at the collegiate level. I recently moved over to Parker University. So we are building a 64,000 square foot, very advanced human performance center. And when it's open, that will be open to the public. So you can come check us out in 2026 sometime. But that's my main job, is to conduct research and to disseminate it if we feel like it gives people the ability to enhance human performance. And I want to be really clear, when I say human performance, I'm not exclusively talking about sports. You've mentioned so kindly in the beginning, I do work with some of the world's most premier and elite athletes right now. These are the highest contracts in all the major sports in the world. These are the people winning the MVPs and so on and so forth. That is, what I spend most of my personal time on. But that said, what we really are trying to do with Vitality Blueprint, with Absolute Rest, our sleep company, with our education, with our research center, is to make sure that everyone has the ability to perform at their best, regardless of what that means for them, regardless of what they want their body to do, and regardless of their situation, setup, and starting place. That is still human performance. We have a saying in our lab that everybody is an athlete. And so if you want to use better performance so that you just have more energy throughout the day, great. If you want to use that to be better at golf, great. If you want to use that to win a golf tournament, great. If you want to use that to just beat your friends on the weekend, I don't care at all. This is giving people the ability to perform cognitively, to perform physically, to perform emotionally at their best. And they can use that and define that however they would like to do. So at the highest level, that is ultimately what I do for my career. We try to conduct research so that we learn more about best practices to enhance human performance, and then do our best to disseminate that in a way that people can both understand and utilize and actually engage with in their life.
Andy, research shows now that people are living longer. However, other research is also showing, whilst people are living longer, a high percentage of them aren't actually living healthier. I've heard you use the term, they have a sense of burden, if you will.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that, in as much of what all of the work that you're doing and what we need to do for ourselves can actually help change that part of the research that we might enter into?
Sure. The burden part is something that tends to hit home with people pretty well. So one of the things that can happen as we age, and we would call this unsuccessful aging. You're aging either way, you're not dead yet, but it's not probably what we would define as success. Is there's a nasty loop that can happen when you feel like you are a burden on the world. The vast majority of people will withdraw. You don't want to be the person in the line that everyone's waiting on. You don't want to be the person that can't figure out how to get the tickets on your phone to get into the concert. Like, no one wants to be that person who's taking forever to get up the stairs and the entire line at the grocery is waiting for you to. Okay. So what happens when you do that is you start to withdraw. You don't go to the concert. You don't go to your nephew's baseball game. You stop going to the gym because you're going to take forever on the subway. Like, okay, you withdraw. Now, this has a bunch of problems associated with it. One, you become not engaged with the world. So you actually fall further behind. Two, that is a physical consequence. You're not physically active nearly as much as you used to be. And three, you have social withdrawal. You're not around people, you don't have positive relationships and connections, and you don't feel like you're providing to the world. And so that sense of burden just spirals you down really quickly into poor physical and mental health. Why does that matter here? Well, that is incredibly preventable. The start of that cascade happened when you became physically behind the world. Well, if you can stop that or prevent that or reduce that rate, it's going to happen at some point, right? You're never going to be as strong at 85 years old as you were at 25, sure. But can we keep you not just alive, which is your lifespan, but can we keep you at the highest health span? What's that mean? Like a healthy age. My good friend Peter Attia has championed this for a long time. We will actually describe a third thing, which is called the strength span. And my opinion here is, as soon as you lose strength, you will lose your wellness span regardless. And so we want to keep people as strong, and strong can mean a lot of different things. But I want you to be strong. If you can be strong, you can be healthy. If you can be healthy, you can feel fulfilled in this life, and you can do lots of different things however you choose to do them. And so that is how we approach this field of longevity, of thinking about past just wellness span, but thinking about strength span, and then having deployable solutions for people regardless of, again, where they're at, what their physical appearance goals are. They don't want to look a certain way, or they do want to look a certain way. Fine, right? Let's just try to meet you all where you're at and give as much help so you can have that autonomy and control, so you can feel great about yourself, whatever that means to you. And we can then live a really long and successful and healthy, non-burdensome life.
So as we said then, Andy, your career thus far, you have been working with, elite athletes at the highest level, at elite levels. So when we hear what you're saying right now, for those of us like myself, I'm in my third act, for instance, and I've got the New York Marathon on my sights 2026 for the very first time, as well as a woman in her mid-60s. So this is my first time out, and a lot of our audience are in that bracket as well. But you talk about like all the work that you've been doing with the elite athletes and what have you. That might scare some people. They might think that the things that you're saying right now make sense. However, what level do I have to do in order to achieve those health, fitness, and lifespan goals?
Yeah, that's a really fair question. What I don't ever want to do is dissuade people from getting better. What I mean by that is, if something like what you just said intimidates somebody, or they think, I don't want to do that, I don't have the time for that, I don't have the money for that, or that just sounds way too hard, then I've not done my job well. Right. Now we can do that if you want. So we do work with a lot of people like you who have crazy, wild goals like that, which is not that crazy actually, but might sound crazy to other people. And we go all in. And there's a ton of stuff we can do with personalized training and recovery and lab work and sleep and brain training and all that stuff. That all said, if we can go all the way back to the bottom, let's do the opposite. We want to make sure, in all those examples I gave, maybe you picked one thing out of that said, okay, that is for me. That is the thing I can do. I hope that's the message that lands. It's not you have to do all this stuff. It is, here's a barrage and a buffet of options. If you have a particular goal or pain point in mind, hopefully we've gotten and given you something where you can go and work on that with. And as an example of that, in my podcasts, every single episode, I tackle 3 specific things. I call them the 3 I's, which is how do I investigate or measure, whether we're talking about, muscle performance or bone health or hormone levels or whatever. Like, what do I ask for? What do I buy? Okay. How do I interpret that as the second I? And then the third one is how do I intervene? What do I specifically do to improve that thing? And within those categories, I go out of my way to try to show people what is the free version of all that. What is the moderate version? Moderate is usually like $100 to $500. What's the 500 to a couple thousand? And then what do the best absolute elite have all the money in the world look at? So I can't always do that for every single topic, but as much as I possibly can. And it is hopefully to address that particular question and saying, regardless of the level you're at, whether it's financial level or interest level or time level, that you can have some resource within all those episodes and say, okay, I can go do that one thing. So hopefully it feels more inclusive and freeing rather than exclusive. But no, I appreciate the question. That's such a really important point.
Yeah, thank you. So on that, our lights have just gone out. That's okay. On that, then, Vitality Blueprint is what caught my attention in discovering you, Andy, when I was listening to you being interviewed on a podcast by our good friend here in Australia, Mark Boris. And so I'm wondering if we can dive into Vitality Blueprint, because my understanding is it's available in Australia now. So can we go back and first of all look at what is Vitality Blueprint, what's involved, why you started this this business, and what it can do for our audience?
Sure. There's the process that we do with these elite performers, and I've done it for a long time. My partner, Dan Garner, he and I connected because he's been doing that for a very long time as well. And it came to a point where we started to realize this is inaccessible for the vast majority of people. But we got to be able to simplify and pare this thing down to that level. And so we started thinking, man, we can't do all this stuff, but we can do this at the blood level. And the reason why we want to do it at the blood level is because blood has the most amount of scientific research behind it. If you compare that to something like stool analysis or gut microbiome, really interesting areas, but very limited research, or other stuff. Blood is really, really, really well scientific established, number one. Two, the blood will tell you a little bit about every organ in your body that has a blood supply. And that is all of them. And so rather than being site specific by just looking at your muscle or just looking at your liver or just looking at your metabolism, we can get a sense of everything. We can get a sense of sleep. We can get a sense of micronutrients. We can get a sense of your ability to detoxify and so on and so forth. And so it's a nice way to kind of wrap all that stuff into it. And it's accessible to most people around the world. And so people in Shanghai get blood done, in Australia, in Singapore, in Saudi Arabia. And so great. The way that we can get help to everybody is not stool testing. It's not brain testing. It's something that's being done in labs across the entire world. And so accessibility, solid scientific evidence, and then actionable insights were the 3 core drivers. And so what we did is we said, most people are getting blood done from this perspective of medical need, right? And so if you think if you're sick, you go to a doctor, they're going to take a blood draw done and diagnose you with your disease. That's great. And then some people are moving past that and they're looking at it more preventatively. So I want to get my cholesterol levels checked to see if I'm, at risk for heart disease or metabolic health and things like that. And that's great. Preventative medicine is awesome. I don't do either of those things. What we do is the other end of the spectrum. What would this have to look like if I was trying to perform at my absolute best? And so we don't look at disease. We don't give prescriptions. We don't recommend drugs or therapies. That's all outside of our lane. Ours is the end of the spectrum, saying, if you wanted to maximize your recovery, if you wanted to enhance sleep or motivation or whatever the case is, then how should we analyze and interpret and then program solutions based on your blood work? And so that's really what we built at Vitality. It is many, many years of what Dan and I have done for these world's highest performers, brought down into a system that is accessible to everybody. And so that comes in a couple of flavors. One is you can get the blood work directly from us if that's a hard thing to get to. But where many people, especially outside of the United States, do is they use us for analysis and interpretation, which is to say, I already have some blood work done, or I have a different way that I can order it. My insurance covers it, or my concierge already. Okay, fine. Like that's not the part that matters. I do not care about anybody ever buying blood work like from us. What matters is our unique way to take that data, analyze it, interpret it properly, and then provide you with custom and very specific solutions that are targeted based not just on this marker being high or this marker being low, but us trying to identify why are those things high or low. And now let's go intelligently correct the system as much as we possibly can, and then let physiology do its thing and let those things rebound into their correct place. So it is way different than medicine. It is different than just looking at this and saying, oh, this marker's low, take that supplement, or this marker's high, take this supplement. It's trying to identify what in the physiology is causing these 3 or 5 or 10 markers to be where they're at, and then help you get back to a spot where your physiology is in the correct position for you based upon your unique genetics and your unique asks and demands.
It sounds like it's actually a really vital component of the whole personal plan, health span plan that we would make, Andy, in as much as what you've just described there. Am I correct in saying that when the blood works get done, that's also the baseline? Is that something that you would come back to and Vitality Blueprint work with?
Yeah. So actually, this is such a really good point. One single blood draw is good. It's helpful. But the magic with something like that is being able to unlock what we call your molecular signature. Now, this is the underpinning, the portrait of what your physiology wants to do. And so what is normal for you? What is variable for you? What's really stable for you? What moves when you take a X, Y, and Z supplement, or when you change your training, or you do something different? What doesn't move? And so we start to not only see what's normal for you, but now we have very intentional objective feedback on the results and progress or ineffectiveness of whatever intervention that you're doing. And so the new diet you're on, is it really working past body composition or past body weight? Why? Or is it not working? The same thing with your supplement or whatever the case is. So the one-time blood draw is fine. And honestly, that's where the field has been for a really long time. Way past that, though, is being able to identify that signature and start to say, hey, look, you know what? We're just not seeing movement for you in these critical markers at this dosage. You have to go way higher, or you have to go way lower. It's too much for your system, or that's just not even the place to go. We got to go back and figure out something else. So it is the repeated serial testing where we start to get really sophisticated with our analysis and start to really understand how we can make improvements.
With actual fitness, as far as working out is concerned for any age group, can I just get a little bit of an insight from you, Andy, as far as you've talked before earlier about strength training and the importance of strength training, and as we put our health span plan together and incorporate things like the Bloodworks with Vitality Blueprint and our nutrition and our supplements and so on and so forth. Strength training, you mentioned before, in particular from a cognitive perspective as we get older, can be really helpful in that way, more so than perhaps, like just running on a treadmill every day and doing the same thing every day, or doing Pilates only all the time. Can you speak to us a little bit more about the importance of strength training and how it can benefit us?
Yeah, we're fully support all those activities, right? So to return to a few minutes earlier, we want to make sure we are encouraging all forms of movement. This is a win. So if the only thing you do to get off the couch is Pilates, I don't want you to take a step backwards and go back to nothing. That's like, always be supportive of the best people can do is better than nothing. But you are leaving a lot of stuff on the table. Things like that are not as demanding in terms of skeletal muscle interventions as something like traditional strength training. And so what's that mean? Boy, you're probably not going to see much change in metabolic health with something like Pilates. You're probably not going to see any change in cardiovascular health. You're not going to see anything with bone mineral density and bone health. Probably not going to see much in terms of muscle mass preservation. Now, does a ton of great stuff, and that's not to pick on Pilates, right? This is just one
Yeah.
example of when you take a limited approach to your physical activity, right?
Yes.
And so we could break this down for everything. We could say the same thing with if you're only doing free weights as well, right? We could say the same thing if you're only running or swimming, right? Everything has its limitations. And so if we want to be as well-rounded as possible, one of the biggest bangs for our buck is in strength training, right? Because we're going to get metabolic responses. We're going to get some cardiovascular and pulmonary responses. You're going to get huge endocrine and hormone responses. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get more functionality. You're going to get more improvements in balance and proprioception. We are going to actually see huge improvements in flexibility and range of motion. And so you're starting to be like, okay, what's one activity I can do that ticks off 4, 5, or 6, or 8 boxes rather than one activity that ticks off one? It ticks off that one really well, but it only does 1 or 2, if you will. So there's many other reasons, but categorically, that's why so many of us in the field are so adamant about strength training, is because it's such a huge return on your investment. And at the same time, it's irreplaceable. You just can't get improvements in strength and some of the muscle adaptations we get. You can't get it from low-level activity. And so it's one of those things where like you have to have a little bit of it. But also if you do a lot of it, boy, you get such huge return on your time. So that can go on, but that's the big categorical answer.
Yeah. And where does in testing and creating baselines and so on and so forth, and in our health plans, where does the importance, if there is any importance, of VO2 max testing? Because we're hearing a lot more about encouraging people to make sure they get a VO2 max. Is it? I'm saying that right? VO2 max?
Yeah.
Because I just did one. I was in Sydney, my very first one, and I have to say, Andy, I was really surprised. I'm a runner. And I was quite happy to get in and do all of this other testing that I was doing, of bone density scans and things like that. And the VO2 max test was a part of what I was going to be doing. And I saw the treadmill and I thought, oh, I'll smash this. This will be fine, no problems. But the treadmill was broken, had needed fixing. And so they had a bike. And so I had to hop on the bike. I have not been on a bike for 30 years. And I got on this bike and they, put the mask on and everything. Yep, I'm good to go. And away we go. The cadence is okay and everything's fine. All of a sudden, they only just put the cadence up slightly. And my thighs said, see you later, Janie, I'm going into the next room. And I just couldn't push through. So can you talk to us about, well, not about what happened to me, but about the importance of that testing and what it actually does tell you, Andy?
Sure. So if you look across the research on what predicts longevity the best, so the way to think about this is how long were you going to live? So there's mortality and morbidity, all-cause mortality, meaning like who's going to die for any reason. Many years ago, we were focused on things like cholesterol levels and blood pressure. And those are really, really important, of course. But they really are pretty minuscule in their ability to just flat out say, if we took 100 people in a room and we did one test on them, how well can we predict who's going to live the longest versus the shortest? Those were not as powerful of predictors as leg strength, as your VO2 max, as your grip strength. And so what's been really clear over the last 20 years or so is, man, these functional measures of human performance actually outpredict mortality relative to other more classic clinical measures. So this actually extends to a lot of more traditional clinical measures, extensive research on this. So strength we've already talked about. VO2 max is the next question you brought up. Well, VO2 max is simply the ability to bring in and utilize oxygen as a fuel source. And this is a direct measure of cardiovascular functionality. And so if we think about something like blood pressure, it's really, really important, but it's only if it's bad. right? So like if it's good, that doesn't mean you're actually super healthy. It just means like you don't have a bad problem. Well, that's not true for VO2 max because we're actually testing how well can you use your heart at its maximum effort. That's what we care about, right? With the strength component, it is how well can you interface with the world? How well can you preserve and stop yourself from falling? How well can you be mobile through? And so these are direct measures as well as indirect measures. Something like grip strength is that as well, right? So yeah, there's some things that you have to do with your grip as you age, but it is also just a really uh, good way to say, are you overall fit, healthy, and strong? Right? If you're pretty weak in your hands, you're probably going to be pretty weak elsewhere. And so it's this nice representation. It's an easy test. There's no learning curve, really. I don't have to have a special warm up or technique, or I've never done this exercise before. So something like a grip strength is really strongly preferred in research because it's really easy to do. And again, it shows you like on average what people look like. VO2 max is a little bit different. It's looking directly again at the cardiovascular system. You have to use a machine if you want a direct measure. You have to either be able to run or cycle, and there's sub-maximal ways we can do it. But it is looking at your ability to bring and utilize oxygen. And if you can't do that, you're going to have a range of symptoms from just low energy, fatigue, brain fog, all the way up to you're dead, right? Or you're on death's door. There's a line when you get your VO2 max tests back, like you probably got reported a score. And that score is what we call relative. So it came in the units of milliliters per kilogram per minute. So it's milliliters of oxygen you brought in per kilogram of body weight per minute. All right. For a 60-plus-year-old female, like you're probably in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 for your VO2 max number, right? If it's reported in relative range. Once females cross below 15, that's what we call the line of independence. You can't live independently, or rather, it's very challenging to live independently if your VO2 max is below 15 for a female, below 18 for a male. Why? Because think about it. A normal task of daily living, walking to get the newspaper, is requiring an oxygen demand of 10 milliliters per kilogram per minute, something like that. So very simple tasks end up being 60, 70, 80% of your VO2 max. Well, how well can you function when taking a shower is 90% of your metabolic capacity? You just can't.
You can't.
And so you have a hard time living independently. So VO2 max is such an incredible and valuable thing. It's not the most and only important thing. Like sometimes I feel like we overblow it. That happens. But it gives you a solid baseline. It gives you a true sense of your fitness. And so with folks that are kind of middle age, we start to get the like, oh, I'm fine. I'm not overweight. I don't smoke. Like I'm fine. Well, you are now. But if one little bad thing happens or you lose a little bit of fitness, you get that one sickness pop up and you start to now dip below that line of independence, you're going to feel really, really, really bad. And life will be extremely hard. So it's a reality check. It's pretty simple. It's easy to do. It takes you 20 minutes or something like that. And we get this both direct and indirect measure of cardiovascular function. And it is such an incredible, important baseline. As you do start to age, now we know that we can look back and say, okay, is this actually a normal number for you? Or is it high? Are you way down? And so on. So I can go on, but it's really important and helpful for that. It's not it's not overly important, but it's important.
So coming back in with Vitality Blueprint again, because I'm working as a little story in here so that we've got a really good picture of all of these elements that we actually need to pay attention to, perhaps investigate and incorporate in our plans for living a long and healthy life. Vitality Blueprint now, was I right? Incorrect. Was I correct in saying that Vitality Blueprint, the actual service, is now available in Australia?
Yep, it is. I don't know the exact details here, but we have a partnership. I forget. I'm not the guy for this, like
That's
the
okay.
business side of the equation. But we have a partnership down there that should allow Australians to directly order their blood through us, and then it goes through some provider that gets you the requisition form, and then presumably you go to some either a laboratory that'll do the blood, or a phlebotomist, a nurse will come out and do it for you. I don't know the exact mechanics in Australia yet. But we can also use what we call manual upload. And that is the ability to source the blood on your own. So you can get a list that says, here's all the markers to go ask for. If you want to do that, you can go source them, bring them back, and then just upload your results through our software. So you can do that second part anywhere in the world for those of you listening in London or anywhere else. But the real key with Australia was getting it figured out so you can actually just do the blood order through us if you'd like. So that should be, we're here recording in June 2025. So I hope I'm not incorrect, but I'm almost 100% positive that that is up and functional right now in Australia. It should be.
Well, we are hoping that it is, because I am definitely going to go out and get this done and make it part of my health, my longevity plan as well. Andy, what's exciting you the most in your life at the moment? For now and in the future, near future.
Yeah, well, I guess at the current moment, pretty excited to go down and hang out with my kids here. They spent the whole day coming up with this, like a box that we got from something we ordered, and they turned that into a shop and a stagecoach. And so I'm gonna go check that thing out and probably end up, buying some groceries from her in the grocery store that they made.
Fabulous.
But super excited about the future of Vitality, of course, and our other companies, Absolute Rest, our sleep company is on the brink of some really fantastic stuff. The research that we're doing at Parker is always super exciting. I've got two just amazing teammates. Actually, my research scientist, Federica Conti, is spent the last 4 or 5 years in Australia finishing up her PhD.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, she's tremendous. I think she's an Italian citizen by nature, but did her PhD in Australia. Fantastic. And she still works remote from down there. So she's all over the place right now. And then my grad student, Zoe Hackinson, they're doing a great job. We're doing a really cool study on sleep across the menstrual cycle right now. So that's been really, really fun. And then hanging out with some of our really high performing athletes. I was just last night up with one of them, one of our Major League Baseball players was in town here and he pitched. So that's always fun is to be around these people the highest. So
no, that's awesome. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it and giving us an insight into Vitality Blueprint, but everything else that we've been discussing today, because as I mentioned at the top of the program, Soul Sentred is all about good health, well-being, fitness and longevity, because they all marry into each other. And, I'm pretty darn sure that that's what all the work that you're doing, and in particular with Vitality Blueprint, and that as a baseline for all of us incorporated, just fits in brilliantly. So thank you so much for taking out your time today, and especially with your kids with that great package that's arrived today. We will let you go down there and buy some things from the grocery store. But Dr. Andy Galpin, thank you so much again for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you so much for the chance.
No, thank you. And if you've enjoyed this episode as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you, you know exactly what to do. Make sure that you subscribe, share this one. In particular, share this one, because the Vitality Blueprint organisation that Dr. Andy Galpin heads up and he's spoken to us about on this episode, it's really important to check this out, because I really feel that it's part of your whole longevity plan, putting it all together. As Andy said, it's a great baseline to start with, and incorporating it with everything else that you're doing right now, it's going to lead you to good health, well-being, fitness and longevity. I'm Janie Morris. Thanks so much for joining us again on Soul Sentred, the podcast.